So I'm gonna do the share now, share screen.
All right. Welcome, Monica, as our speaker of the week.
Thank you for having me. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see the chat room if anybody's typing anything, but I can see people's faces at least here. Um, so my topic is increasing self-confidence, which is an aspect of self-love. And I want to just talk a little more about that throughout the presentation. I'll talk about the what, the why, and as well as the how. And I'll share some three powerful keys to increasing your self-confidence in all aspects of your life. Um, and I'll share my journey. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about some real life inspirational true story books as well as movies. Um, let's see. How many of you have seen that movie called A Peaceful Warrior or read the book? You can raise your hand. I can see from here. So if anybody's seen it.
I
It's
haven't
actually
seen it
based,
yet.
you've seen it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, well, it's based on a true story, and it's about this individual who was training for the Olympics. He was in gymnastics, and so he was very passionate about, winning, and he was very obsessive about it. So he was just focused on just being like this really perfect person and just getting, his goal to be in the Olympics. And one day he ended up getting into an accident. And so then he couldn't really practice anymore of what he was doing. And and so he went into this depression and he went into a lot of doubt in himself. And so he just, started to just pretty much resent and hate himself, like the word we were talking about earlier about resentfulness. And and seeing situation now in the world with all the chaos going on, all the plans that we have for 2020, all of a sudden things just changed because we were forced to stay indoors and quarantine, and we can't, we have all these travel restrictions. I too had all these travel restrictions, but in any case, it's the same thing happened to him in this scenario. He was forced to just not be able to do the thing that he really felt that was, his whole world and happiness, so he was like in all this pain. So I would say he was heartbroken. Then one day he ran into this mysterious stranger at a gas station, and he turned out to be like this spiritual teacher for him and taught him about being present and being in the moment and being in the now. And he started to really, started to help him see a different perception on things. And so to the point that he really started to look at life in a more positive attitude. And he taught him about meditation and, being in this now moment of things. And I love some of the quotes in the movie. So he pretty much increased the self-confidence level to him, where he ended up, being very successful at what he was doing. And it wasn't just, in the part of the Olympics, but it was more in other aspects of life and relationships and anything else that he did, throughout his lifetime, that he ended up writing this book that is called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And it's very inspirational. I highly encourage it. I use it as an example for many things. And I loved it because it does tie into this presentation I'm going to talk about as well. And one of the quotes that comes from the book and the movie itself is that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. And there is no path to love. Love is the path. There is no path to peace, but peace is the path. That means that we make ourselves that path. We become the masters of it ourselves. And the other one I really love is a warrior does not give up what he loves. He finds the love in what he does. And so, I love the mixture of the words of the peaceful warrior, because all of us are a warrior in ourselves, and we do things with the work of the light. So it's like becoming a warrior of the light, a warrior of the love, and a warrior of peace. Like, so just good movie. Another true story example of another movie that I want to share with you. Well, it's not really a movie, but it's based on a person's real life, true life person. How many of you have heard of Charlie Chaplin? Many? So Charlie Chaplin, if you haven't heard about him, he was a comedian in real life. And in the US, like in the early 1920s, he did a lot of silent films. And he's actually pretty funny. If you look it up on YouTube, we'll probably have some clips, and it's still funny to me. Even though he used, the most simplest of comedy, and he would turn everything into joy. And to the point that it even got like Sigmund Freud's attention during that time. Who Sigmund Freud, if you don't know, he is a psychiatrist or psychologist from the early 1900s, and he wrote this quote in analysis of Charlie Chaplin that even though he was like a poor man, so he did struggle a lot growing up in real life. There's a documentary actually in the Prime Amazon video that I also recommend you to watch. But he grew up poor and he had a really rough childhood. But so that Freud wrote that is, even though he was a poor man, despite an arduous childhood, who had grown up with the most humane values, he grew up with these humane values himself. And so he would turn any situation into some form of love and optimism and kindness. And there was a lot of stuff going on during the 1920s. If you know the history of the United States, we had the Great Depression for one. There was a lot of things going on. That was a major thing. And in kind of some ways, some people are talking about what's happening in 2020. It's kind of like similar to what was going on then with the Great Depression. And what's going on in 2020 is actually an actual spiritual awakening going on. It's like the great spiritual awakening of the mass of the people. So I like to use Charlie Chaplin as an example because he himself embodied the self-confidence himself growing up in a rough childhood and being poor, and changing that later, that he wrote a poem himself much later that ties into self-love as well. As I begin to love myself, I understood that at any circumstance, I am in the right place at the right time, and everything happens at the exactly right moment. So I could be calm. Today, I call it self-confidence. And I love how he wrote this poem that he titled "When I Love Myself." So that's why I say that self-confidence is self-love is an aspect of self-confidence itself. And so I like to use these examples of real life people who shifted from going into whatever dark night of the soul they were going through themselves, or whatever pain or heartbreak, and change it into the uplifting and being motivational themselves and role models in life, and living a life and embodying that self-confidence themselves, which we're all capable of doing ourselves too. So I could talk about myself and my own journey that is also based on a true story after getting into some of these topics with some of the movies. So I gave birth to Sacred Heart Awakenings that I just actually launched this year when everything was going, when everybody started to be quarantined. So I started to launch this new business that I'm doing, practicing. So I wasn't always into the self-confidence type vibration myself. I suffered a lot from doubt and unworthiness, and what triggered it was when I went through my divorce many years back, and I went into this really great, very deep dark night of the soul. It's almost like my own Great Depression of my own past. And so I was in a lot of doubt of myself. And at the time I was getting, certain messages, intuitive messages, where I was being told that I was actually supposed to be what I thought was like the end of something. Like I thought that I had already accomplished everything in life because I was very successful in my career. I still am, and very academically successful and very spiritual. So I always had a strong mystical path as well. And what I couldn't understand why, the relationships themselves weren't the greatest themselves. And so I really thought that maybe this is, I finished what I come to do and done with, my life. But what I was being intuitively guided was that I was to do a whole new healing, holistic healing in something. And so I went into this doubt because there was no way that I never imagined that I would be in the holistic healing path that I'm in right now and talking about it and doing presentations about it and being here with all of you at this time. But it took a lot to really get there because I went into this path of depression that and I tried everything in my spiritual mystical tools to try to like get myself out of it as well. But out of the last resort of finding stuff, I stumbled into what was called light language. And so I started to really dig deep into like my soul's karmic and ancestral patterns and really wanted to start shifting them. And it was painful because once you start to confront yourself in all those aspects, it takes a lot of courage to really want to change and willingness to want to change all that. And but that's the path of us, you know, as healers, and I call us, you know, being the heroes as well, because we want to heal ourselves so that we can heal others as well, and so that we could be their role model too. And just like I gave the two examples before that with the peaceful warrior and Charlie Chaplin, those are some really inspirational role models who are, you know, who made a difference in life through their messages or how they presented themselves. And so the light language started to really shift in so many ways in me that I never expected that it would actually activate it inside of me. So the more I started to shift, I started speaking it. And at first I spoke it just in private. And so I never like, I was in my own doubts still. I was still working on the doubts and the energy, but the minute that I started speaking it, it felt like it was also activating me. So it was also helping me heal. So it's almost like a self-healing type activation going on at the same time with my own light language. Um, so that's when I started to get more into looking into some more help and getting others to try to put this business together, like spiritual mentors, to really organize myself and my thoughts and how I was going to create this be a practitioner and you know, the current life. And I think, well, I am actually, I know this, that I've always been a healer my whole life. It's just that I never thought that I would be doing it as a practitioner, as a practice with others and helping others in that way. So I do light language, you know, channel through the sessions and helping people and shifting those patterns and converting any heartbreaks or pains that they may have with grief to be higher love, the same way that I went through as well. You know, coming from a divorce is not an easy thing for anybody, and I definitely don't wish it on anyone. And take, for example, like Charlie Chaplin, he went through some divorces himself. And, you know, despite him having gone through those hardships too, he was able to convert that into joy as well. And you know, you see examples too with other celebrities, even now, like Robin Williams, who said that he committed suicide after a divorce. And I would say, divorce rate has increased a lot more. And I think it's increasing even now with 2020, the whole quarantine life that is happening. And that goes for any type of romantic relationship, right? That any breakup or any loss that you may have, you know, is very painful to the heart. So it makes you grieve, you know, it makes you feel heartbroken. So
Absolutely.
that's why.
Grief is a very difficult process. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It does take time, and definitely not something for anybody to be alone with. And even though for me that, you know, I actually decided to do it alone, I don't recommend it, you know, especially if you're going to go into like really deep depression and stuff, to really seek the help that you need from somebody that you
Sure.
resonate with, you know.
Monica, what does
I
a
have a lot of.
session with you look like when you meet with somebody and you work with this this light? What does a session with you look like?
So Because everybody who's here, I want to offer a complimentary Sacred Heart Awakenings activation session. I have an actual application that, and I was going to show a slide later that has a link to show where the application is. And I could put it in the chat area, and it's just to assess, how we can work together. And so I'm also like an intuitive self-love spiritual counselor and spiritual teacher, and energy healer. So I can talk, through the session and see what it is that you need to shift in your life. That what is it that it's hurting you at this moment, pain, and that's pretty much what the session is going to be. Just talking, what kind of support you need. So that's I wanted, as a starting point, I wanted to offer to this group a complimentary session, which again, I was going to talk about it a little later, but it's okay. We can talk about it now. So in all my sessions that I'll work, with people as loving guide, I will offer, it will get into light language as well, and as well as other like energy meditation techniques too, that I have. Oh, so the heart image that I show right there, that was actually hand drawn. That's my logo, and it was channeled. So that's my representation of the Sacred Heart Awakenings. When I was really getting into some transformational quantum leaps in my life, and I started to get these messages about the Sacred Heart. And what happened was that I've been really activated into the Sacred Heart itself. And the Sacred Heart it's what's in all of us itself. And it's a combination of the higher heart with the lower heart. So when they start to work together, it's almost like this alchemical wedding. It's of the masculine and the divine feminine. That is, they work together and this much deeper self-love. So the more that I started to speak my own light language, I really started to just like fall in love with myself so much that it really activated the Sacred Heart. And so then I also, received this message that the Sacred Heart is like a portal, and it really connects more with the I am presence within each of us, our own source connection. It is a very powerful divine source of love that we all embody and carry in us, all of us, because we all deserve to be these divine beings of love, and we really are. And the things that do block us are mainly the emotions of our own grief or any pain that we're going through emotionally. As I experienced a dark night of the soul, I could tell you that for me, it was just very painful. Like I felt a lot of things in my heart, just even though it just, feels like it's physically something going on in there. And so energy does impact your health too. So if you're going through certain emotional pain and grief, it does affect the heart. Like if you're really angry, the heart receives that pain too. I'm talking about the physical heart. And so there's been cases or studies and science have shown that, people have suffered heart attacks from too much anger or, too much of sadness and grief. There's been cases of people who've broken up from their relationships who have gotten heart attacks, from that, because of their sadness. And so definitely that's not the way to live, and nobody deserves that. And so that's why I want to help in so many ways for people who resonate with it, that I want to reach out to as many people as possible to really help them, shift that pain and really dig deep into every part of them through their soul and really tap into their own source connection, because they have so much more. We have so much more to offer to this world, and we need each of us here on earth right now, that we're going through all these changes, what appears to be chaos, but really there's a divine order to all the things that are happening. And it's just a matter of us just surrendering to what's going on at the moment. So I want to talk a little bit about light language, now that I mentioned how it was activated in me. So this is like a really, really brief introduction to light language. And I'll also do a sample in this group setting much later. This will be my first time doing it with a group. I've actually just started doing it with some individuals. and they've had received some major transformational shifts. And so I would love to try it in this session here with all of us in this presentation. One of my favorite quotes is from Nicholas Tesla. I don't know if many of you have heard of Nicholas Tesla, but you heard of the car, obviously. The Tesla car has been really popular this year. And I really love the car too. It's all electric, you know, built. But Nicholas Tesla was innovator from the early 1900s. So he was an engineer, innovator. He was also supposedly, you know, he was the one that was in this competition race with Thomas Edison about who invented the electricity at the time, right? And so, anyways, you know, Edison Thomas or Thomas Edison, sorry, was the one who got the prize and all that. But Nicholas Tesla did a lot of experiments with light and energy. And I love this quote from him because not only was he just, you know, this engineer, but he was a mystic and a spiritual person himself. So he says that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So actually, that's to me light language right there. That's what light language is. Sounds that are produced through us that come from our soul through the chakra system. And it's just pure energy and frequency and vibration. And so those who do speak light language is unique to themselves. And in ancient civilizations like the Sanskrit and even like the mantras, I consider them to be some form of light language that was left behind from our friends of, you know, from the other star systems and galaxies. Some of them may even come from Palladium itself, because Palladium is the closest that, and they were the most that visited Earth. But there were, you know, many different star families that had come to Earth in ancient civilization that we don't remember, but we'll soon start to remember once we start to awaken some more. So the way the light language works is that, and the reason why I have this picture, this is an actual DNA picture. It really does like work at the DNA level. And so there's been talks about scientists about the junk DNA, but it's not really junk. And it's actually supposed to be activated, and light language helps to recode and activate that sequence in the DNA within the cell itself. So if you know, like the human cell, and you go towards the nucleus, that's where you'll find some of the DNA. But over here, we're talking more quantum physics, and I don't want to get too deep into this stuff. I'm very passionate about the quantum physics as well. I think the scientists are just now starting to uncover a lot of things that the ancients already knew about this. So they're just pretty much catching up on a lot of things right now.
So is the light language, is it actually something that you say during a healing
Yeah,
session? Is there some type of a
yeah,
verbalization that you actually say that you call a light language?
yeah. So it comes out through my mouth, obviously. I say it, you know, from my throat chakra itself. It gets channeled, and that's how the light language speakers speak. It comes out through the mouth through certain sounds. And so like if you ever like hear like the mantras, like the Om, for example, I would say that's some form of like light language itself, that may have been left behind from our ancestors who were also from these other galaxies themselves, and left us with these teachings so that we could still have something, some form of light while we were still here on Earth. And because before many eons back, Earth's history, when we had civilizations like Lemuria and Atlantis, they were like really advanced civilizations, and they also spoke some form of light language themselves that came from their own planet or wherever they came from. And for me, the light language I do channel, I've been working a lot with the dragon energy. So when they channel through me, it's like they have their own energy, their own frequency, and their own vibration. And so the same with like crystals, for example, crystals produce their own type of frequency themselves. And so because everything is energy in the universe, right? But everything has its own unique type of energy frequency signature. And so I could channel, the dragons come in, and I could also channel the angels and the ascended master, but it just depends what is coming in at the moment that the person needs. And, for me, like for this group, I will be working with the dragon energy, channeling for this.
Nice.
And
You're going to give us a little sample of your work?
yes, I am going to get into that.
Perfect. Very good.
So I wanted to just this is just a brief introduction of what the light language is, how I see it, and the information that I get through my own inner knowing, intuitive inner knowing. So I like to also have like pictures and explain it in, I guess, more English way on Earth. Better way explaining it here on Earth rather than sounding so alien like. So let's see. Okay, so self-confidence. What is it, right? I actually like the definition in the dictionary. It says a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own ability or qualities. And I emphasize on boldface the appreciation, because it's really about, getting into this gratitude of starting with ourselves and being grateful for who we are and what we have to offer in this world. And that also builds on the self-confidence itself. So it's really about trust in self, having courage to really face yourself and really dig deep into your own aspects, including your own shadow aspects too, and just embracing all that you are, and not being afraid of those shadows if they come up in you. It also gives you that courage. And it's a presence of mind, being present in now. And like the example I use in the Peaceful Warrior, he really worked on being present and being in the moment and being in the now, and just really being here and now, and being firm with yourself about, knowing that who you really are is that you are this divine being of love. And I wrote here spiritual confidence because it's really about us having our own spiritual confidence in who we are and our own power, which leads into the next area of why do we need it, because we do need to embrace our own power and know that nobody else can control us, that we are our own masters in the things that we do. And so the minute that you embrace your power, you're also building on your own spiritual confidence itself. Being authentic and true to yourself, and just live a life of confidence, of higher love. So joy to me is what I define to be higher love, because joy is it's more like love in motion, love in action. And so that's really what joy is. So it's a little higher vibration. You have love and then you have joy. So joy, like, if you have like laughter and so forth. So then you're also like with self-confidence, you're able to navigate more in the fear and the chaos that is happening at the moment. It increases your attractive energy force, it increases your intuition. So for example, like if you want to go out dating, then you have more self-confidence in yourself and knowing that you don't have to pretend to be somebody else just so somebody else can like you, or accept you the way you are, because you already accepted yourself and who you are. And the same goes if you're looking for a job, right? If you're trying to get certain interviews, and it just gives you that level of confidence in who you are and knowing that you are, you've accepted yourself just the way you are. And that's why I use these images right here. This one person with the shirt that love who you are. So that's why I say it's an aspect of self-love.
Very cute.
So stand with this self-confidence when you go out in the world, and people do feel the energy, of like when you portray yourself with confidence, and they really people will feel it. They will gravitate towards you, and that's why I say it's an attractive energy force. Um, so definitely, it's very helpful to like start increasing that self-confidence. So let's get into the how. Let's see. Oops, went too far. 3 keys to increasing self-confidence. And I did this kind of cyclical rather than just a bullet form. Um, I like to use the number 3 because of the triangle. And the triangle is the representation of the creation. So 3 is a representation of creation. And so shifting, the number 1, shifting your perception. It's, being more self-aware of yourself and understanding what are your thoughts, in this moment or any moment, or just being more aware of what you're telling yourself. How are you speaking to yourself? Are you telling yourself that you can't do it? Or, you just kind of like have to shift. If you're telling yourself that you can't do it, you have to like really pump yourself up, even if you don't feel it, at the moment. And the fastest way that you could shift this perception, or that could help you look at it with joy and laughter. Maybe watch a Charlie Chaplin clip, on YouTube or something, make you laugh. But I remember when I was going through my dark night of the soul, I had these during Virtue Archangel Michael cards. And I like to just play with different oracle cards. I just love them. They're like, these beautiful spiritual tools and everything. And I remember asking, when I was going through this really like painful moments, and I would ask Archangel Michael, well, what should I do, about this situation? I'm feeling all this pain. And I kept getting the card, look at it with sense of humor. And so, so I didn't like quite understand at the time. I don't understand what you mean by that. But now I do understand, because when you shift your perception and you look at it from a way of sense of humor, it really does make you, it's like a transmutational alchemical thing that happens to your body. Um, so, everything is energy. So everything can be transmuted and transformed into something else, transformed into this higher vibration of love through the joy and the laughter. And it's almost like you're laughing at yourself, but, not like you're not in a, just in a fun way of looking at it, um, rather than looking at it from the painful way, shift it in a different way. And I really love how, like in the cards earlier that we were looking at, in the old cards, how everybody had a very unique perception of looking at the cards, right? And I love how some people looked at the resent as, I should resent. That's in a positive way. It's resending the light. So I think that's a very joyful way of looking at it, perception wise. Um, the other form is, looking at things with gratitude. So, okay, maybe, you're in pain about this, but what can you be grateful about the situation that is bringing you? Like in my case, with my divorce, I'm actually grateful that it led me on the path that I'm on right now, to be this practitioner, to be sharing with you this message, and serving as, spiritual counselor and a teacher, and just being able to do some form of light language also. It's like a miracle, almost. So I'm very grateful for so many things, and that's one way of looking at it in life too.
I love that. That's
And
beautiful.
thank you. Yes, and so going into the second one, so once you shift your perception, it also leads to a routine daily affirmation. So to this day, I do every single day about 10 minutes of just affirmations, and just pure affirmations, and to the point that it just becomes like a recorder. You're reprogramming yourself, you're reprogramming your brain in every cell into some positive affirmations. And so the way I do my affirmations, I actually combine it with joyful and gratitude. So for example, I say, I am joyfully grateful for the abundance in my life, as an example. So I use the 2 words, the joyfully and grateful. It's almost like a formula. So that's how you start to and you start to tune into those vibrations of being joyful and being grateful. So it's really just helping you as well shift the perception. And so that's just an example of doing that. And the more you do it, the more it starts to record in you. So if you could just make it like a daily practice, even if you start small and then just keep increasing it and come up with creative ways of your own unique affirmations that will work for you. Um, this also includes mantras too. Some people practice mantras kind of like an affirmation too. They're positive energies themselves. So the next point, the third point, practicing meditation. So definitely you want to connect more with your higher self and your own source connection, and helping you also. Scientists are now, since I mentioned, have been catching up to a lot of the stuff that the ancients have always known themselves. Is that scientists now have been doing a lot of measurements with meditation. They're finding how it really chemically changes the brain, and it's making people actually happier, and it's shifting the perception, which kind of leads into the next one. So that's why I made it kind of cyclical. They kind of tie in together to each other. Um, so meditation does actually help you shift your perception too. And you know, through time, as you practice it more, you start to see things in a very different perspective. But it also connects you to your own divine truth, your higher self, your own source connection, your own intuition, and it builds on your self-confidence. And so just doing these and practicing them and going deeper into them, there's just so many aspects to it. Even though it's only three of them, you could really dig deep into each one of these and really tap into your own higher source and really start to increase your self-confidence. And meditation for me is the way I practice it, is that I visualize what I want to see as a higher outcome and results in my life, the most positive outcome. And then I leave a few minutes of integration or receiving messages that may be images or some ideas that may pop into your mind. So leaving some time for some silence and stillness. So it's kind of like a two-way kind of thing. It's like transmission and reception. Kind of like, you know, a cell phone. You're sending a call, but then you're receiving a call, or, you know, sending a text message if you're looking at it from current technology examples. So that's the way I look at meditation. Some people may have a different way of doing it, but of course, do the meditation that works best for you, that you feel comfortable doing. And so,
I like that very
yeah,
much. I like that paradigm. Yeah.
yes, yes, thank you. Um, so let's see. Oh, so I really love this quote from, talking about the affirmation, the message from Sri Swami Satchidananda from Yogaville. There's an ashram actually in Virginia, and it's called Yogaville. So yoga and meditation and everything, it's really a great place to go for a retreat and silence and so forth, getting out of the city. Um, but I love what he said about the mantras and mystic word. Um, he said the mind should dwell on mantra and its vibration so that it will not divert its attention to anything else. The more you repeat the mantra, the more you produce the sound vibration within you. After some time, even without your conscious repeating, you will be able to feel the vibration within. In other words, you can hear the sound of the mantra within you, and that will be a sort of hold for you to get into the higher vibrations. That is why a mantra is a mystic word which has its own special vibration. And by developing that vibration in you, you're developing a certain kind of wavelengths, and you will be able to attract the kind of wavelengths from the cosmos. So, like I was saying, with affirmations themselves, everything is frequency, everything is energy. So you just start to naturally become like this. So what he's saying, what I'm going to summarize here, is that you start to become this energy attractive force. And so the more you say it, is the more you start to reprogram yourself, that you start to vibrate to that energy. It's like if you keep saying, I am joyfully grateful for my abundance, then you will always be abundant. And even if you don't feel like you are, just say it anyway. Start somewhere. That's the point that they're saying by this message, that the more you say it, the more you start to vibrate in that energy, and you will start to attract more of that in your life as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that.
Yes, thank you. So then, talking earlier about some of the support, I would love to those who are here in the call to receive complimentary Sacred Heart Awakenings activation session. There's a link that I have here, and I'll put it in the chat area later after my presentation, where you can find the application and fill it out. And I'll also provide my email and that too in the chat room, so reach out to me. So would definitely love to help with, if anything resonates with you and you really want to dig deep into whatever's happening in your life at the moment that you need help with, please reach out to me. So we can get into the sample of the light language. Let's see. Let me just so I don't know if I'll be able to see this, but if you could, I want to ask just to do like kind of like a measurement at this moment, how open is your heart feeling from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. You could write this down on a piece of paper or, write in the chat room area. I can't see right now the chat room, but if you want to just like write it down and just kind of see like the before, and then we'll do the after, see how it feels afterwards. So what we will do is obviously try to minimize any distractions around you. And usually I like to ask people to close their eyes and just really feel rather than see, because it's really just all about the sound. And it's better by using headsets, but if you don't have headsets, no worries. Just try to do your best to really like feel into the energy itself and feel it with your heart. Feel it more with your higher self of your own heart. So did everybody get a chance to write down how open your heart feels right now from a scale 1 to 10? Yes? Okay. I'll say it's a yes then. All right, so if everybody could just sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Take several deep breaths. Let's take 3 deep breaths. And just as we inhale love. Exhale any tensions or worries. Inhale love. Just relax. Be still. And now the dragons. Invoking the dragons of the heart to come in. And they're grateful for their presence at this time. Saunaka, 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 sana usia sa uasa. Isukanaya ua sau kuonasa. Suayasa, suayasa, suaisa, suaisa, suaisaunasa. Sukanaya, 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 saunasa, saunasa ina kusuanasa, kisa oanasa isukunasa. Sukania sukana. Sukatukusuna. Sukania sukutusi suana sa uasikia sa uasa. Sukanai suana isikiwasa. Isana uasa ua. Sa ua yasa uanasa. Usunaka isisuanasa. Suna Yesua isikuna sawa isa. Wanzakia sawa ta usua nasa. Suna sainasa. Suna yasauna kai sua nasa. Usa 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 usa. Sauna kisine au usa. Niasuna Niasua 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 isahuka asa. Usa inasa. Take a deep breath. Let's take a short pause of integration and going to channel a little more to allow a little more of the opening. Sauna, 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 isanaka, sua isa, wasa isa. Isaunaka, asawa isa, au asana kitsuna asa. Sikana au sauma isa. Sikania sa, asana ka sukuna sa. Asana aisa. Usana aisa, usana aisa, uka asa aisa. Tukuna isine asa, putasana ka umatasana isa, isa sa 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 ina, sunaka. Take another deep breath. And relax. Just feel. You may open your eyes when you're ready.
Very interesting, Monica. That's very interesting. Now, is that a language of a specific type of a language, or are these sounds that you've just kind of created on your own?
That's a language from the dragons.
Wow.
It's channeled through me. Like it just channels intuitively.
Okay.
And I just let it go. I just surrender to whatever's coming out.
Wow.
Out of my mouth.
I noticed you also have some hand movements as well.
Yeah, that's also what's called energy weaving. So that's another thing that I'm able to do is not only channel it through my voice, but I also do hand movement of like certain like aligning or doing like weaving. It's almost like sewing the energies. And I was tuning in intuitively to see like the heart and what was going on. And I was seeing a certain light. We all have certain grid lines in our bodies, similar to the Earth's grid lines. So I was actually kind of working with the grid system in us and trying to repatternize and realign it in a certain way to assist with opening the heart. And that just comes naturally with the light language itself too.
Well, that's very, very interesting.
Just curious what you felt.
I've never heard something like that or seen something like that before. So this is very unique for me. Very, very interesting. I have to say personally that I was kind of like in a zone, in a trance type of a zone. I felt so relaxed. I almost fell asleep.
Yes. Yes. And everybody feels something different. And that's okay. That's unique to them, to what they need to feel at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's curious if you could share, how in comparison to the before and the after, how would you rate your heart opening, now?
Does anybody have any kind of commentary from Monica about how their heart is feeling? I definitely feel much more relaxed. I felt like I was in a trance. Whenever I'm, my heart feels more open.
Would you say it's increased in number from the number that you had before?
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely an increase. I would say maybe like 3 or 4 points. Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
So it takes a lot of courage, actually, self-confidence to do light language, because obviously it doesn't sound like any language from Earth, right? And it's very unique to each of us to speak it. Like once you start to really tune in to your higher self and our own like soul connection, that's when the light language, really, like I said, it's like a miracle for me that it really got activated in me. And I do work with a lot of other different light language speakers as well, or people that I've talked to in the different light language community. And they all sound very different in its own language. It's almost like Star Wars, or Star Trek, everybody speaking like their own different language from the star systems
You know
and
what it
different
reminds
galaxies.
me of? It reminds me of the southern I'm not sure if it's the Baptist community where they speak in tongues. Have you ever heard of that? I don't
No.
know if anybody has heard of that. It's a spiritual group, and in their religious practices, they speak in tongues. In other words, they
Mm.
make different types of sounds that are part of their prayer, which is very fascinating.
Oh,
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah, Monica,
Yeah.
thank you
So,
so much.
yeah, well, if anybody else wants to share, they're welcome to share in the chat room. I know that we're probably being recorded, so if you want to keep it private, I understand. I get it. But I would love to hear any feedback, in the chat room if you want to share anything of how you felt with it in the light language.
And
Um,
you would like people to contact you privately after this session,
yeah,
after
yeah,
the introduction, to be able to experience a one-on-one?
yeah, that, too as well. Reach out to me, like I mentioned, and I'll be posting all that in the chat room as well. Um, Anything else that anybody wants to share? Other than that, I do have, to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. Um,
Thank you, Monica. Thank you for sharing something new with the Healing Cooperative. We've never had somebody uh, speak in a light language before. So that was something new for me. Yeah, and that doesn't happen very often.
yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't
yeah. So
happen often.
there aren't too many that I know of who do the light language. But and it's been like fine tuning in me as well. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying not to blast anybody with it, but really like, any type of sound that we listen to, even music and stuff, has its own frequency,
for
its own
sure.
tone and energy. And so that's really what, for me, like it just channels. I just surrender to whatever's coming out.
And that's what healing
So,
is all about. It's surrendering to something, to a force that's greater than our own, right? Something more cosmic, right? Yeah, absolutely.
yes, exactly. So thank you so much for letting me share this technique or this modality of the light language with all of you, and being open to it as well.
Very, very much. So I'm going to stop our recording now. So thank you, Monica, for being our speaker of the week, and we look forward to having Melinda as our speaker next week.